stuff.
So I think this is going to be probably the sum total of the group, so if we want to get started, feel free.
Let's go.
What's first on the agenda?
So we don't have any public comment, so I'll kind of, for the benefit of the folks on the phone, I'll try to give you the bird's eye view. So there aren't any citizens here to make any public comment, so I was going to skip ahead to the business and then try to get to the discussion items if that'll work for the group. And then just FYI for everybody, I need to leave at about 6:35, and Ashley can stay if there's any items that the group wishes to discuss after that. So just a heads up on time. So newsletter items, the usual items that are included in the monthly newsletter for the town are again in the newsletter this month. The Chili Fest we can talk about during the recap if anybody had a chance to go. The vacancies in the committee are still listed as they are every month. The transit updates are listed here. And Garden in a Box is listed again. And the vacancies.
Martin, to clarify, we have 3 vacancies right now?
2.
2.
2, yeah. Tanya's son hasn't been able to come to meetings over the summer, and I think in the spring and the summer she had a scheduling conflict with one of her kids, but I think she's planning to start coming again now that it's fall. There is one new item that's not a recurring item in the newsletter on Bus to Work Day. This group is interested in mobility and energy and greenhouse gas reduction. So Bus to Work Day is being sponsored by the Commuting Solutions Group, and that'll be on Thursday, September 28th.
That's a fun idea. Bus to Work. I like that.
Yeah, that's a new one this year. So that was great. The Keep It Clean Partnership has a note about stormwater protection and stashing trash. And then our monthly reminders about yard waste site being available year-round, securing trash on windy days, bulk item discard options, which is an item that the board talked about on Monday night. The do-gooder superior, I'm always going to give a plug to Ashley on that one. And then the new items that the county, as well as the household hazardous waste, and then also the 2 newer items that the county has been promoting and has cards that went out over the last couple of months for sharps disposal and also for the hazardous materials management facility. There was an ad here that we can come back to later, but there is a link every month to options to discard unwanted bulk items. And the main section at the bottom highlights the fact that the town and Rock Creek Masters Homeowner Association provide trash and recycling collection service through contracts with Waste Connections, and they provide a bulk item pickup for a fee. The fee is $15 for an item. So we can come back to that during the recap. So that was it for the newsletter. Chili Fest recap, did anybody have a chance to go?
I had to work.
No word on that? All right, so maybe if, Lisa, were you able to go? Lisa, can you hear me?
Lisa? No.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. Was I able to go to what?
Chili Fest.
No, I'm still not in town.
Oh, okay.
I'm still a baby. I don't come back till next week.
Okay, well maybe Caitlin did and we can get an update from her.
One thing in Steamboat Springs.
So we'll come back to that one next month and see if anybody had a chance to go. Ezzy, if you can hear me on the phone, are you aware if anybody had a chance to go? Did you have a chance to go to the event? I didn't have you down as replying that you were able to.
Yeah, I wasn't able to go, but I'm not sure if anyone else.
Okay. Well, we'll check on that next month.
Caitlin was going to go for a while. I'm not sure if we'll
Yeah.
do that.
And Tanya said she might be able to stop and help with the booth, so who knows?
All right, so the parties that could confirm that aren't here, so they're off the hook this time. Next on the list, document shred. So every year the town tries to co-sponsor, help promote the document shred event with the folks over at Guardian Storage. We had one last spring and we worked hard to try and get them to host one again this fall, and they are going to host one this fall. We found out a couple of days ago. So that will be from October 14th to the 31st during the regular times that the Guardian Storage facility is open. It's open 9 to 6 during the week, and I think it's 9 to 5 on Saturday. I didn't include that on the agenda as the calendar note, but that will be in the information that's in the October newsletter for the folks that are keeping all the documents and records that they're ready to shred. Again, this year, this season, the folks over at Guardian Storage are able to process that again, which is a great partnership for the town to be able to market that. That's a pretty standard one. Colleen, you look like you have a question. No?
Oh,
Just mesmerized.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. No, I think
Um,
it's a great thing.
Next 2018 budget schedule, I sent you the dates with the meeting notes, or sometime since the last meeting, I sent you an indication of when the two dates are that are set for the town board's finance committee review. That is on September 26th from 1 to 4 and September 27th from 8 to 11. And I'll include that in the meeting notes again for anybody who's interested in being here to participate in that. I can't remember if anybody in this room has been to that in the past. Michelle, have you been to it?
I have been to
You've
one.
been to it once or twice in the
Yeah.
past. It is a wonderful way to learn about the financial structure that holds the town together, that we're all part of. It's the skeleton. It's the most important policy document that any elected group will approve any year.
It's very
And it's
worthwhile.
it's an item that we spend a considerable amount of time on, and it's great that the board's able to identify some blocks of time to go through it in some considerable detail with staff. So that'll happen later this month. That was it for new business and updates. I usually forget at least one thing to put on the agenda, and I don't think I had anything. Well, I got one item to add. We can talk about it during the debrief, but the building code updates that we've been talking about to incorporate the international,
The IECC.
IECC, thank you, Michelle. And also the National Electric Code that we've needed to update this year. We're scheduled to go to the board on October 23rd. So that goes through a publication process, and I work with the town clerk today to get that scheduled to be posted and published for that public hearing. So that's an item, again, that we can come back to during the debrief to the degree that the committee is interested in. There's nothing else on business, new business, or updates. We could talk about Monday night. Ezzy, did you want to chat about this, or maybe Mike, or what would be the best way to go through this?
You mind if I give you a little bit, don't mind, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, Izzy and I attended as he presented and discussed with the board members. I shared my takeaways in an email. I think it's worth recapping and then making sure we clarify the point on the building codes too, so we understand what happened, and then decide where to go next. So there were several different potential proposals under discussion. The vibe of the meeting was less like us making a formal proposal for a vote or anything like that, but more of just presenting ideas for feedback. And so we can have one down the list and just recap these. One on changing the committee's name and a bit expanding more formally the scope of work. So it's more broad sustainability focus. The reception was very positive to that. And I walked in during that discussion, so I missed the first part, but generally positive receptions, supportive to it. They gave every indication they would be, view a formal proposal on that topic favorably. And as I was walking in, I caught the tail end of the conversation, which I believe we were saying we thought this expanded scope and focus would be more energizing and attractive to people to join the committee. And I was hearing the board members encouraging us to think about younger members of the community who might want to actually get engaged and might be motivated
Sure.
by that
So
topic.
I'll jump in just with a
Yeah.
real quick FYI item. This committee had a high school member for a couple of years named Corinne Lithgow, and she was a great member of the group, and then she graduated last year, or the year before last, and she wasn't able to find a replacement who was also going to high school at the same time. So yeah, Chris referenced that during the meeting, and he was accurate in recalling that. There was a previous member of this group who was in high school at the time. So I guess the point was thinking broadly about potential applicants.
Mhm.
Oh, I thought you had to be 18.
Nope.
You don't?
Nope.
Why did I think that?
Not for anyone except for the post-stack and those, or is that even? No?
Any advisory committee.
As long as you're a
Okay.
town resident, you're good?
Hmm?
Sweet.
Oh, okay. Oh, I know what it is. Just so you know, my daughter came with me to one of the open house things, and she was asking about being on committee, and they basically were like, "Oh, you need to be on the youth committee."
No.
So it might be just a misunderstanding, because so I thought that that's how this
We should just tell the town to
disinformation.
take away all our youth for the youth committee.
Yeah, just send
Blame
them
it on
over
them.
here right now.
Yeah, they're up to 25 members.
Yes, they
so,
are.
It's the bigger group, bigger group.
So my
So I'm sorry,
takeaway
that
on
was just a little
on
little
that
input
whole
there.
option, a potential proposal is that we've got a green light to bring back a formal proposal, and that's something that we should kind of prepare and reach consensus on. And Martin, your suggestion was that this would, as a more formal proposal, it would be best if we had a quorum and could vote on that, which we don't have tonight, I understand, because the phone doesn't
Phone doesn't
for
count,
that.
unfortunately.
But we could work on the language of it and then maybe vote
Mhm.
next time.
So Mike, before you go on, the
Yes.
emails, you emailed the group last week 2 documents, one of which was related to the name and scope change. So you emailed that to the group. I have it up here on the screen if the group's interested in making any revisions or going through it to any degree. And then also the same thing on the resolution. Just FYI before you move on.
Yeah, maybe I'll just run through the rest of the recap and then we can come back
Mhm.
to that specifically. But on the topic of the bulk item pickup, the suggestion was to reinstate it as a free service for residents. We heard concern from board members about the past abuse of the program. We heard a more general concern from the mayor in particular about whether it even makes sense for this to be a taxpayer-funded service to residents. And that if someone, kind of a bit of the philosophy is if someone wants a bulk item picked up, they should, why shouldn't they pay for it, kind of, if I could paraphrase. So we heard a bit of skepticism and resistance. I would say the board members were open to hearing a more detailed proposal from us on how it would work mechanically. But I would anticipate encountering some more skepticism even if we brought back a more detailed proposal.
Yeah, and just to build on that a little bit, the group definitely seemed kind of split, like Mike is referencing. And the 1 or 2 board members mentioned or acknowledged the fact that Waste Connections, the current waste hauler for both the town and for the Rock Creek Master HOA, has a $15 per item service now, but they were just unaware of it. So that was an item I had as a follow-up to maybe make a little more obvious in the newsletter, at least quarterly, to highlight the fact that that service is currently available through Waste
That's
Connections.
great. It's not bad, really.
Yeah,
it
if you need to
is.
get rid of a mattress, it's
Yeah.
probably worth just paying the $15.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
and just anecdotally, I've talked to lots of folks,
Yeah.
at least once or twice a month, somebody will call or email, and those emails get forwarded to me or those messages, and they'll have a question. Oh, it's great that you have this service, and they're thrilled that Waste Connections, right before they move or they have a change or a remodel in their house, so that they can call Waste Connections and schedule a pickup for whatever items they have.
Okay.
So it's definitely, like Mike mentioned, a little bit of both. Some folks would really like to have a free general service program event, and try to find a way to deal with the abuses, and then also just marketing the fact that the service is currently available and always has been.
Cool.
So this is informal. And so I just wanted to say about that bulk cleanup. It's really not the norm anymore like it used to be. So many people in the area have gone away from that, and I really think that was a good move generally. But I think we can gather data from places or make the case for the pros and cons. But it's not really the norm in most communities anymore in the area. So it used to be, but it's not.
Right.
Just FYI.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I'll take the last two. The voluntary, the program that has been developed in this committee over the past year or so on the green building scoring system and allocating points and encouraging meeting a certain threshold. I would say the update in terms of what we brought to the board was to characterize it more as a voluntary program. But even with that caveat, I would say that also faced a bit of mixed response from the board members. There was a general favorability towards voluntary programs as opposed to mandatory. However, there were a couple concerns. One, I heard more of a legal concern of creating a voluntary requirement that might be perceived as truthfully or not as a firm requirement, and that it could create confusion or even grounds for a developer to contest a rejected application. So there was one kind of legal strain of concern around that. And then secondly, just the sense of, I would call it just a general sense of not wanting to create additional burdens on builders or developers in what is a competitive marketplace to attract new development in Superior versus Broomfield and Louisville and other communities. So I felt the reaction was, on balance, relatively negative towards that, but Essie or Martin can offer more color.
I
Would
wasn't.
it help if we had information that other communities in Boulder and Louisville and others have some Swedish codes that we wouldn't be at a disadvantage where you said it was kind of too easy?
I think that's actually a really good point.
There's a lot of that.
I like Lisa's point, but it's funny because that consensus hasn't changed from board to board. That's been the same with like the last two boards. It's like everything is about, we don't want to make ourselves unattractive, and I get that, but at some point, when do we like give up doing the right thing for our community and our future over, oh my gosh, we don't want to like offend a builder? I don't know. It's a tricky one. But I think if you compared it to the towns around us, I think that's a fair thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know Boulder is in
Much
its own
more
universe, but I'm not as sure. Don't know as much about how we compare with.
Oh, no, they're
Broomfield
struggling.
and-
I just read that there was this great quote that one of them said that builders are promising things and they're not coming through. And they said, the reality is they're not going to do, no one is going to do more than they absolutely have to for their own best benefit. So I guess even Boulder is getting promised certain things, that's not hardcore in, and with their whole thing is the low cost housing, and these builders are like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, and then they build and they don't. And so I just read they're struggling the same way.
Interesting. So it's just a different way, but same struggles.
But basically the gist of the article was, if you don't make the builders, like you say, you have to do this, most of the time they don't. Just because, why would they? They're building, selling, moving on, There's nothing to their benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I feel like I don't feel very optimistic about this.
No.
Well, let's cover the last item and then make decisions kind of in the context of all of them.
Yeah.
So the building code, it appears I've misunderstood what I heard during the meeting, but maybe Martin and Ezzy could help clarify. I understand our proposal was the town currently enforces the 2012 IECC code, which is kind of an energy code for commercial buildings, and that we had proposed the town update that to the 2015 standard, which is generally more stringent and more energy efficient, more sustainable, and that was our proposal. But maybe Martin or Ezzy, you could clarify where that stands with the board, because I think I misunderstood it.
I think, Martin, if you could clarify, that'd be helpful too, because I think I had a similar misunderstanding. Definitely appreciate from your perspective.
Sure. During the board's dialogue on this topic on Monday, there was definitely a mix between the two prongs that were discussed in the memo that the committee worked on with me last May. The notion of having a voluntary or mandatory matrix of choices, or the sustainability measures options that had a point threshold, blurred a little bit in the discussion of an enhanced code. So in my mind, there are the exact elements that you discussed in the memo that the board had on Monday night, which was adopting the latest version of the International Energy Conservation Code, a side item, an additional item on mandating electric vehicle and solar infrastructure, and then having something that exceeded the current building code or exceeded IECC, which would be the green construction code, or having an own version, like Lisa mentioned. Boulder has its own version of an energy code, and then building performance benchmarking, a long-term operational analysis of the efficiency of the building. So what the board deliberated, and has deliberated, I think, off and on for years, when first talking about the residential building code and then having this latest iteration with the group, is a discussion of what standard to use and when. The board wasn't interested in enhancing what the building code would be, which building code or any additional element would be created for potential adoption by the board. But the IECC, moving forward, taking the committee's recommendation, which was to go ahead and adopt the current version. So that's the industry standard. The norm for jurisdictions in our area and across the country is to adopt the International Energy Conservation Code as an item that's adopted by reference with the building code. The town hasn't done that yet, and it's not been on my work plan this year to try and get it scheduled, coordinating with the town manager. And this group made a recommendation to go ahead and move forward with adopting the latest version of the IECC, and that's what we're moving forward with. What I heard the board very specifically say was don't do anything over and above that.
Okay, well, so much for that, all those lists. Right?
Well, it's still good information. I think it was a really valid policy discussion,
Well,
but
no,
again, that's
but-
just my take on it.
I mean, that happens all the time, you know. So now so that's where our focus should be. We can really, like, asking them to do all this extra stuff is basically gone. Now we need to get them to update on the new code is what we should really be focusing on. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the newer version of the Energy Conservation Code is what I was working with, what I mentioned earlier, working with the
Right.
town clerk to get the publication dates right for considering a new ordinance.
Okay.
So that was that's what I heard, and that's what the town manager heard on Monday night. Am I skipping something or missing something? Can I help fill in a blank for you, Mike?
Yeah, I walked in after the conversation had started, so I may have just taken things out of context, but I heard comments along the lines of concern about implementing requirements that would make us less competitive compared to other communities. And I at the time, I understood that to be specific to that code, IECC code update. But if you and the town manager heard differently, and if we're working towards formalizing the implementation date for the 2015 code, then I think that's consistent with what this committee has recommended.
Yeah, but just flipping through my notes from that dialogue, Mike, I can see how that somebody who kind of walked in at the end of that or midway through that discussion could come to that conclusion. I'm just glad you tried to sort through it. You know, I have to, and it's sometimes challenging for me. So coming in as a volunteer, missing the first few minutes of that discussion, I don't blame you at all. I appreciate you trying to catch up. So like I mentioned, that element of the discussion will be up for the board's discussion during the October 23rd meeting as a public hearing. Ezzy, was there something I missed on that?
Ezzy, did you catch that?
Sorry, someone talking to me?
Sorry.
Well, just following this discussion of the IECC and clarifying that, is there anything else you want to add or anything that's not clear still?
No, I don't have that. That's great.
So what does that mean for this committee? I mean, on the IECC thing, have we made our recommendation clear as a committee, and is there no further action for us? Or, I mean, is there anything that we can or should do to help make this happen, or is it kind of in the process, it's in the staff's hands now and the board's hands?
Well, once the board provides direction to the town manager and the town manager gives me direction, I'm going to copy and paste the recommendation that the committee had during the May 22nd meeting, which was as soon as is feasible, adopt the most recent IECC. I'll copy and paste that into the cover memo with a recommendation for the committee for the board's deliberation when they have this as a public hearing on the 23rd. So I don't think there's anything kind of operationally the group needs to do. If you want to be involved, by all means, feel free. Come to the meeting, exhibit support of the group, if so moved, or if that would be something the group is interested in. This is an October 23rd item, so this committee will meet again next month, and you can make a follow-up motion if you'd like. It's at your discretion, but your meeting on October 12th is ahead of the meeting next month. But really isn't anything operationally the group needs to do at this point, unless there was something else you were interested in recommending.
Okay. So that's clear. I think, well, the other potential items for us to do would be the other, follow up on the other items then. So we had the name and scope change resolution, the green building points system, and the bulk item pickup. So I don't know what we want to do. I feel like we should move forward with the name and scope change things, since
Yeah,
that has
definitely.
support from everybody.
Yep.
And we just need to do it. And the other two, we
Yep.
can make a decision whether we want to table it, abandon it, double down on it, and come back with a new proposal. I don't know where people's heads are on the other two options, which got more of a mixed reaction. Or we could always table that till we have more people here in person and discuss in detail. I don't know. Any thoughts from folks around the room here?
Well, I think that the point thing, we might as well just wait until we get new town board members. I mean, really, I don't think that's gonna go anywhere, you know. I mean, we
Based on the
have.
response so far.
Yeah, well, we voted in builder-friendly trustees, that's what you got, what we voted for. I mean, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. I think we should take our energies and, you know, see if we can't make a bigger impact on something else and kind of put that in the back, and maybe in 2 years, we might have a town board that's a little more open to that.
Of course, all the building will be done by then, but
Oh, the building is never done. We'll have some sort of a natural disaster we have to rebuild right now. There'll be a tornado or something.
sorry.
Yeah.
So true.
Okay, for the remainder of this meeting, should we just talk about the proposed resolution on name and scope of responsibilities
Yes.
of the committee?
I think
Sure.
that's a good
Focus
idea.
on that?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Sure.
Did everybody have a chance to look at the email from Mike that had the 2 documents that he drafted
Oh,
very kindly?
I didn't see that one. Oh.
So I can email them to Ezzy or Lisa if you don't have them handy on your phone or your device. But the 2 documents that Mike forwarded last week are available, and Mike can make some changes to this, or I can make some changes to this through tracking changes. And then we can send it out with a quick meeting note, summary of this meeting, or well, it's whatever the committee is interested in.
I do like it. I think it's heading, and I know it doesn't necessarily have to do with us achieving anything, but I do believe, like you said, it's gonna help the community understand what it is and maybe bring in some more attention and desire based on it. Because I think environmental sustainability is definitely a better term
Mhm.
for it. Because we have recycling, so as far as everybody sees, well, what do you need to do anything more with that? I mean, that's, I think, the laissez-faire attitude of the community, not realizing that there's more to it. Yeah.
Right.
So I like that.
Can I propose, I kind of like just even collapsing it more to like the environmental committee? Sustainability sort of sounds like, I don't know, it's kind of one of those, I actually threw it around and it's a slightly eye glazing. I mean, if you work in the field, I mean, believe me, I've worked in committee. Anyways, I don't know, I kind of want to think like brief, like the youth committee is just the youth committee. It's not the youth committee to make your job resume look better, you know? But I don't know, what do you think about just an environmental committee or a green committee or something like just that's really easy and doesn't have any eye glazing to it, you know? Sustainability is like, it's kind of one of those vague, you know, I don't know. I just asked people around me, and what is she?
The youth council is called the Youth Leadership
Having
Council.
over
Oh, okay.
sustainability, it puts us on the sort of like don't just other areas nearby. I think a lot of the other advisory committees I've seen have sustainability in the team, so it's more of a standardization type thing. But I don't necessarily feel, I think it's a little bit more specific, but I don't necessarily feel super attached to it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of keeping sustainability personally.
Excuse me.
I think it's yeah, looking around not only at other towns, but at, nonprofits and universities and just other things that I see out there, I find that that's the term that's commonly used. And
Yeah, we
To
don't want to
me-
be common. We want to attract people. We want to, I don't know. And I mean, just ESAC is in, I won't remember that. It's like Prozac. It's like, I won't remember what all the, okay.
Mike, you were nice enough in this summary to include what they have from other communities. So Lafayette has LESAC, the environmental sustainability, and then also a waste reduction. So they have two groups. I think if I remember correctly, their trash and waste contract is shepherded through by RAC and not LESAC. And then Boulder has the climate. It's a plus, but it's
they
and.
have staff. They have multiple permanent
Yeah.
staff in that division, so
Yeah.
it's a whole different ballgame. But
I'd also like to
that
point
would
out,
be a nice change.
we have Google, we have Greenpeace, we have Target, we have a lot of things that are just one word. I mean, this is the problem with government committees, is they have these long drawn out names. And when you look at how when people have the money to say, we're gonna hire the best people to get a name that attracts people, they don't go for, the clothing and grocery advisory store, right? I'm just saying, I've read a lot of books on sociology and how marketing works, and I'm just bringing from that approach instead of the normal, this is what all the other committees in the area do. Why do that? Why not say, why don't we try something different and see if it's a little catchier and stands out a little more, maybe attracts a few more people? I like to kind of go outside the box there.
Well, the group can think about it and wait till there's a
Well,
full
they
panel
won't like
tomorrow,
it.
or not
They
tomorrow,
won't like
next
it.
month, and then make a motion then. If there, I guess I'd like to bring up with the group the information that Mike was nice enough to put together on the proposal and the rationale, and then the supporting paragraphs that you typed up here, Mike. That was very nice of you to do. If there are any additional items or changes maybe the group has after looking at it tonight, and maybe before the group hopefully has quorum next month, maybe make any suggestions or changes or any additional information to help justify a name, whatever that name is, and then maybe think about making a motion next month for the group to consider.
yeah, I'll add on one reaction is I do like the idea of like a catchy name. So if there's something different, like it doesn't even necessarily have to.
Okay, you
Have
know
the
what?
words
It was
advisory
my
committee
idea. It
and-
was my idea to do the name change, and
Yeah.
you appointed it to him. And I don't know why. You didn't even ask me if I wanted to do it, and it was my idea to do the name change originally.
Colleen, I need to interrupt you. I didn't assign anybody anything.
Oh,
That is not
no.
staff's role.
I was sitting right next to him when I was here and you said, hey, do you want to draw that up to him? I was just like, well, I could have drawn something else. You know what?
Don't feel free.
I kind of feel like this is just one of these committees that just kind of churns in the water, and it's very frustrating. And it's like, I don't know, we spent all this time, and it's not even going to be used, It's just, I'm going to leave, and maybe I might come back, or maybe I won't. All right?
I'm sorry you feel that way, Colleen.
I have no idea. I have no idea. Okay, I had no idea about that because that was last meeting. But anyways, I mean, I guess I'm unfortunate that she didn't say anything at that time, so I don't know really what that's coming out from. But to her point, it's fair. I don't actually want the same name as what everybody else is around here, and I didn't realize until seeing that because I hadn't had a chance to read all of this. My fault. So yeah, I mean, I do like the thought of like coming up with something else that means that. So,
Sure.
but yeah, well, that was not what I expected. But anyways, it's hard, and I wish that Colleen was sitting here right now and could understand that I'm just as frustrated, but it has nothing to do with this committee. It's really the town board that's not really allowed us to make any progress because most of the committees have some specific stuff they can work on, and we're just always about drumming up some idea just to go and see if they'll accept it or not. Yeah, and usually it's just not.
Well, and that's actually one of the reasons that it's really important for us to at least change our name so we have a clear scope of work and can actually communicate effectively with the board about what we'd like to do and find some good projects that we can actually work on and hopefully get some traction on.
I think
one
that's
of the
a-
challenges right now is that there's appreciation the thoughts of just doing kind of recycling, conservation, or management type stuff. And so it's challenging whenever we're with other groups sustainable measures.
Okay.
That's another reason that it won't be valuable to change our name to something that more clearly reflects that. So that's kind of my thinking on it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement, because I think that's also been a problem with the board, hasn't it? To be like, well, why do you guys want to touch this? Because this is what you're supposed to do. So I think that's fair. So now what? If you guys all didn't realize that, actually Colleen did just walk out. So.
Okay, I was wondering, you couldn't quite hear yourself.
Yeah.
I heard what was happening.
Yeah. She has just left. So we'll see. But anyways, okay.
Well, it sounds like we do at least have interest in updating the name and in putting some wording in there that outlines the scope of work more specifically, or gives some boundaries or guideposts around that. So I think that structurally is right, it sounds like, and we should try to seek Colleen's input in as constructive a way as we can, and then touch base on this again next time.
Okay.
But well, for right now, then, I mean, are there any other thoughts or input people want to provide directly on the content of this, or should we do that
On the
over
name or
email?
the resolution?
Any
Or
and all
both?
of it?
Is the resolution really just kind of like taking the old one and putting a new name in and just kind of helping with the scope a little bit? There's not
I
much
tried
fundamentally
the
different.
things
is there?
I intended to add to it. One was the name, and then two was just some wording, and it's just high level, and 2 or 3 lines of text that lists a few of the things that are kind of in scope. So that's just so that there's some other words in there besides just recycling and conservation.
Yes, so just to chime in a little bit on that, it looks like the verbiage that you did change revised or updated the things that were specific to recycling and conservation and made them a little more broad, like the group talked about over the last couple of months, or last month at least, on making it more, a little more general and not specifically regarding recycling. So I see the word environmental sustainability activities, which I believe was recycling and conservation activities in the current version.
Yeah, and then right above the text where it says section 3, the last couple lines there say waste management or management of waste, water and energy, and other activities that support resource conservation, improved air and water quality, and climate change mitigation. So we've at least listed out a broader set of things that would be in scope, and I would welcome other people's input into what words appear in the list, but I think listing out something more broadly gives us a little more room to run on those topics.
Okay.
So if it's okay with the group, I'll go ahead
As long as
and,
it covers, I think as long as it covers, certainly waste management, energy and water conservation and efficiency, or basically sustainable water and energy measures, and then essentially climate change mitigation. I think it's going to be the main kind of 4 things that for me at least that I've been thinking about so far.
Okay.
and then I'll copy and paste the new version and track changes in this so that folks can see the current version and then the proposed version that Mike was nice enough to put together. And then the group as a group can talk about changes. And then maybe do the same thing with the name, just bring that up next month. And then I'll follow up with Colleen and make sure that she knows that she is, of course, invited to participate as a full member of this group. There wasn't any effort to single out anybody for an assignment or to exclude her in any way.
Okay, thank you. That's very nice of you.
My last thought on completing this, there were a couple bits that in the prior resolution that seemed like kind of formalities of language that I wasn't sure if they would transcribe exactly. Martin, I was kind of going to defer to your wisdom. There's a whole section in the end about reappointment schedules for certain members of the committee and some details like that, which...
There were some details that don't need to be replicated in an updated version, but there is going to need to be some specific language to be consistent with the ordinance that the town board has for governing advisory committees that the town attorney will make sure is accurate.
Okay, yeah, I was kind of leaving that up to staff for all of those pieces.
But yeah, so in 2012, when this was approved, it had an initial appointment list, and that won't be necessary in the update.
Okay.
But the other items like term limits and officers and meetings, this all needs to be in there. And the town attorney will add anything else that's necessary.
All right. Well, I hope that will help get some traction. Okay, so now what, should we go back to the other one, which one did you want to discuss next?
Well, I think, okay, well, we've said we think the building code, IUCC update is moving forward. We have an opportunity to come to the public session on that if we choose to. This resolution, people can make comments over email between now and the next meeting, offer new suggestions, and we can vote on it then.
Okay.
And the other two were the building scoring points system and the bulk item pickup. And at the moment, it feels like we are tabling those until next time, but if someone would like to discuss those further, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one because I feel like we've done all we can with the point thing right now. I'm not really in the same mindset as Colleen as like ditching it for 2 years. I think we need to continue to persist on some end. But I just gotta maybe think about that angle. I don't know. So I understand where the town's coming out from it, but it's like, I don't know. We just gotta do something. We can't sit and do nothing. And it's the same statement I made to the board, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Like, you know, gotta do something to move. We're not, you know, we've been stagnant, like as a town, on any real new things except for like the residential code upgrade. You know, really, there hasn't been anything done in the town to like improve sustainability or whatnot. I guess it's just all kind of motoring along, isn't it?
Yeah, in my opinion, the programs and initiatives that the town does are fantastic,
They
especially
are.
not having any staff dedicated to this.
Yeah.
So
what more
I
do we
understand your
need?
perspective, but there
Yeah.
is absolutely a flip side to that.
And maybe that's the whole point. Maybe we just need to realize that there isn't really much to do, and all we have to maybe look at is what can we do to enhance the programs that we do have, make them better? I don't know. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
I mean, there may be a way to rethink this proposal and that would be more receptive. I'm not familiar with what Louisville has, but I know I've been into Huckleberry, I think, and they have some sticker on their window that says they're a Louisville sustainable business or something. So
Oh, interesting.
I'm curious about that, but I don't actually know the details of that program. So that there could be it could be repurposed as something where, you know, the building can get on the registry of sustainable businesses and get a sticker for their window if they meet certain criteria. That might be more. Then it would be separate from the approval process for new development proposals, but that, like, maybe there's just a different channel that we could repurpose this for. I don't know.
That business recognition program is a program that Leah Yancey with the county came and talked to this group a couple times over the last couple of years.
Okay.
Mhm.
There is a program in Lafayette I'm familiar with, and I think when Louisville got some staffing last year, they might have done something similar there to recognize businesses that are going over and above to enhance the sustainability of their operation and being recognized for it.
I wonder if that's where we turn that document to. Huh, interesting. Okay. I mean, it's weird because I know it's focused around new building, but yeah, maybe we take
And then
that.
well, existing buildings could participate too then.
Yeah. Okay. Just a thought. All right.
And that also leads in a little bit, I think, to an item that the group talked about in May on building performance. I deleted it. So it's, again, another option to think about ongoing rather than just one time.
Okay. Okay. So now what? Really, I guess that's it. 'Cause that was really our topic, was that discussion on Monday, yeah. we have no budget stuff going forward, so we're done with the town board, right? So we're good on that?
Well, the items the group has talked about were reiterated again in this year's budget and the preliminary budget that
Right.
was submitted, and it's available on the website, and there's a copy out front for anybody that's interested. All the items of this group, not all the items, but the items of this group is contemplated last year and this year for net new items, from dog waste compost
Mhm.
to continuing to have giveaway, a budget to have giveaway items, and continuing to support the yard waste side, all the items that you are, again, in the proposed budget for next year.
Okay, good.
And if there's a chance of something changing, I'll let you know.
Okay, sounds good. I think I just need to rewrap my head around the whole idea of, I mean, one of the funniest things about redefining our name is that, I don't know, for some reason it gives me hope to that there's something we can do with this. It's not like I didn't understand that it was different before, but I don't know. There's gotta be something. Like, I don't know why we don't have community composting. I know we do with yard waste, but I think we need to do maybe more stuff around that. And some of these youth, we do need to get a couple on the board, especially two that have a truck and want to go around and pick up people's stuff and take it to the yard waste facility for them.
Yeah, there's probably an environmental science teacher at the high school.
I
Maybe
don't
someone to
know if we
reach
have
out to.
environmental. I'll have to check.
Or if there's even an AP biology. there'll
Oh, there
be a
is that.
significant amount of-
She's amazing, actually, too. Both of my kids have her. I was here for different classes. So, Okay.
Anything else?
No, maybe we should let Martin go to his thing and we digest what happened and come back next month with a different perspective.
Mike, you were going through the list, so the last item I had a blank next to was bulk item. You mentioned that as the item that you wanted, when you were recapping potential next steps. So scoring sustainability, come back to maybe next month, and then bulk item was the other task. Maybe come back to that as well, or was there something that you wanted to get in front of the group now?
Well, I don't need to get it in front of the group now, but we have a decision to make as a committee, which we can make next time if we choose to, but that's whether to continue pushing a proposal around this or not. And then if we do, the feedback we got from the board is a request for more detailed planning around the mechanics of the program, so we would need to investigate and plan that in some greater depth.
Bless you. So I'm going to jump in there as a segue to the work plan. So I think Trustee Hansen, Chris Hansen, the liaison with this group, who also mentioned during the board meeting the other night the opportunity for this group to think about adding this as a work plan item, potentially for this year, but definitely for next year, to think about providing a recommendation for the 2019 budget cycle. The way our budgeting cycle works, we're working on it year-round. So a day or two after the 2018 budget is approved, hopefully, at that public hearing, and we start thinking about the subsequent budget. So I think he brought up the idea for his peers on the town board, the idea of this committee working on trying to figure out an option to bring back for next year's budget cycle. So that might be something to include in the work plan for 2018, which is the segue for, hey, it's almost the fourth quarter, we're going to start working on the work plan. So I'll include the work plan for this year with the meeting notes that go out for tonight's get-together.
Okay.
And start thinking about changes for next month that you'd like to chat further about.
Might help us with our work plan, too. I feel like there's a lot of spin in there, too. So, okay.
And that was it. That's all I had. So the other item on the agenda was the work plan. So that was my awkward segue from one to the next. Those were all the items I had. Lisa and Ezzy, anything else you wanted to bring up with the group before we wrap up?
No, I think so. So many comments. Sorry if the communication's not really perfect, but yeah, appreciate it.
It's fine. For what we're up to, it was probably best.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Bye.
I guess just a side note, would it be appropriate for the building department or somebody else to like be more in charge of